Hi, everybody. This is Erin Callinan, founder of Beneath the Brave, and I'm back for another Real Talk Wednesday. So I'm showing up every week to talk about some of the issues that so many of us shy away from, the messy stuff, the uncomfortable stuff, specifically when it comes to mental health. So today's topic is the statement that so many of us use, which is, I'm fine, and other lies we tell ourselves. So I just want to break this down and let's have some honest dialogue. How many times have you told another person in your life, I'm fine? Whether it's family, friends, a coworker, a colleague, we've all done this and we do it for a lot of reasons. But when we put it in the context of mental health, here's a pushback I have. Many times, those of us who are struggling with our mental health or living with a mental health condition feel this sense of uncertainty, this sense of insecurity, or maybe shame that if we're struggling, we're supposed to put on the brave face and say we're fine, put on the smile, and get through it. You know, rub a little dirt on it, pick yourself up by the bootstraps. And in a lot of scenarios, that's helpful and that works. But when we say, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, when we do that enough, ultimately it doesn't work. It doesn't serve us well. And so I want to challenge you to do some introspection, to allow yourself to kind of reflect on how this may show up for you in your life. Because if we're being transparent, we're being vulnerable, this is a bugaboo of mine. This is something I'm always working on, personally and professionally, to take off that brave face and that suit of armor that says, I can't ask for help, or I don't want other people to know that I'm struggling. If they ask me how I am, I'll say I'm fine. Because in reality, what that does is it shuts down the conversation. It gives me the out so that I don't have to talk about how I'm actually doing. And in the end, who suffers? Usually me. And so I just want you to think about, how many times have you said, I'm fine? I'm fine. Everything's good. I'm fine. When it wasn't actually true. Okay, we've all done it. It sometimes sort of rolls off the tongue like this automatic response. It's a default mode for so many of us. And in some situations, it's needed. It works. It may not be the appropriate time to divulge all the stress or whatever is going on. It may not be the right person. Maybe you're not in a space where you want to talk about what's going on. Absolutely get it. 100% makes sense. However, what I'm going to call out in this Real Talk Wednesday is when we use the statement, I'm fine, as a shield, as a cover or some kind of buffer in between, here's what I'm really feeling, and here's what I'm letting other people see. Now, this may come up in your relationships, in a workplace setting. You take today's discussion and apply it where it most makes sense. But for many of us, when we have this innate response of, I'm fine, usually we're not, okay? Usually we're not fine underneath that. But I think sometimes if we're willing to be honest with ourselves, sometimes underneath that is a fear of judgment, that we don't want to be seen as too sensitive, too emotional, maybe not strong enough, maybe weak. We should have tough it up, get through it on our own. We're not strong enough. I know sometimes I say, I'm fine, when I haven't really found the words to describe how I actually feel. And so it's not necessarily that I'm trying to be dismissive when I say I'm fine. It's that I'm not quite ready to talk about it. Because I do want to be intentional about what I share, what I say. I want to be able to ask for what I need. I want to be transparent. I want to be rational in my request for help, or I don't need help. I want to communicate that. And sometimes when I don't have it together in terms of what I'm feeling or what I need from others, I just respond, I'm fine. And I think there's a lot to unpack there, but I think usually the person on the receiving end of the I'm fine hears, I don't want to talk about it, don't ask me again. And then if we're being super honest, sometimes when we say, I'm fine, and then the person doesn't check back in with us, we get annoyed. We feel let down. We're frustrated. It's one of those, I don't want to talk to you, but don't stop checking in. And so maybe we say, I'm fine because we don't have the emotional energy to talk about it. We don't have the capacity. We don't have time. There's fear. There also, oftentimes we just avoid being vulnerable. Having real talk about real life is tough. It can be scary. Because we're not in control of how another person is going to react. And so if we talk to them about what we're really feeling, what's beneath the surface, that can be scary. That can be overwhelming. And in some ways we feel like, well, if we admit that we're not well, does that mean we're admitting that we're failing or that we're not good enough? I don't think so at all. I totally disagree with that. I stand by it. But I know that many times we say we're fine because we're not ready to have the conversation. There's fear around it. We have shame because we think we should be able to handle it. Or we're frustrated or we're mad or we're angry at the person in our life, but we don't have the skills or the strategies or the tools to either express what we're going through or ask for what we need. And so it's not as though I'm never going to say I'm fine again, because I will. But here's what I think I owe to the people in my life. That if I say I'm fine, which I usually say when I want to cut down conversation, right? I just want to shut it all down. But in reality, if I want that person to offer help or to support me in some way or see me in some way, I owe it to them to give some level of explanation. Because when we expect people to read our mind, we are just setting ourselves up for failure. And maybe you say, hey, I'm fine because you're protecting another person. Oftentimes when we're struggling, I know I have felt, and many others I've talked to have felt like I'm a burden. We tell ourselves we're too much. Other people have their own stresses. They have a life. They've got enough on their plate. I don't want to give them one more thing to worry about. And I understand that, and there's a time and a place for it. But when we get stuck in the I'm fine category, what really happens is we isolate ourselves. We intentionally or unintentionally create disconnection. And so sometimes even when we want somebody to show up for us, we steal the opportunity for them to do so. Think about this in your workplace or in your family, among your peer group. If you are someone who is regularly in the habit of times are tough, you're overwhelmed, you're anxious, you're sad, you're frustrated, you're angry, you're whatever it may be. But if you are in the habit of regularly saying, I'm fine, what you're really doing is you're avoiding talking about how you feel, which I know can feel ick, but it's so powerful, it's so helpful. But you're avoiding that. You're also avoiding any ability to have communication. You're shutting down the opportunity for other people to support you, and unintentionally, you're teaching the other people in your life that silence is strength. That when we're silent and we're silent, we just pack everything down. We pretend it's okay. We sweep it under the rug. Sometimes that's misinterpreted as a sign of strength. And there are times in our lives where we have to prioritize. Okay, so we have to, put this thing over here that maybe is big and heavy and important. and we want to talk about it, but it's just not the right time because we've got other things we need to prioritize, that's okay. Put it over here. But if we put the next thing over here and then the next thing over here, we build this mountain of things we never talk about. And so when it comes to that whole idea of sort of mind reading, we can't expect other people to know what we need if we don't ask for it, or if we don't tell them that we have a need in the first place. And so if any of this resonates with you, you are not alone. Please know that your voice matters. How you feel, your emotions, what you've been through, your experience, that's so important. Nobody can speak up for you as well as you can. Other people might speak on your behalf, or they, may kind of give a summary of what they know you've been through, but nobody can do it as well as you. And so your needs are important. Your feelings are valid, even if what you're going through isn't visible. I know for the longest time, I wanted to take my mental health condition and all the signs and symptoms that came with that, and I wanted to wear them on the outside. It's like, could I use a wheelchair or a cane, or could I put a brace around my arm so that people could look at me and see that I was hurting? They could look at me and see that I was in pain, or I needed support or assistance. I needed empathy. I needed a hug. I needed somebody to ask if I was okay. But when we live with an invisible illness, like a mental health condition, oftentimes that's not the case. Most of the time, that's not the case. And so what happens, at least for me, I know sometimes it feels as though, well, what I feel or my experience based on my mental health condition, it's not valid because it's not visible. And that's not it, right? I'm going to just call bullshit on that. Okay? Asking for what you need is not selfish. It is a skill set that we all deserve to have and to hone in on and to practice. Because asking for what you need takes courage. It takes guts to do that. And so I want to encourage you that if you're going through something, which is most of us at any given time, ask for what you need. Because if you do not ask for support and you say, I'm fine, people will assume that you are fine. And you cannot fault them for that, right? So I mentioned that people can't read your mind. That's a big thing that over the years, lots of therapy, lots of really good support in my life, lots of, I'd say, constructive feedback, right? Receiving all of that has really helped me learn and understand that the people in my life genuinely want to help. Okay. And if I only drop hints that I need support, if I make a little phrase or a statement and I just hope that they're going to ask again, if I'm waiting for that, I miss the opportunity. I might be waiting a while. If I put all the ownership on other people to read my mind or know that I'm lying when I say I'm fine. Okay, people aren't mind readers, so let's just give them a, get out of jail free card. Let's not expect people to know that we aren't fine if we say we're fine. Now, depending on how close that person is to you, they may just know. Okay, they may just know that we are not doing okay. But if we're going to tell ourselves the lie that we're fine, that can work well for some duration of time. Okay, it's not a bad survival strategy at all. But we cannot be upset when other people believe us. It's not their fault. It's not our fault. It's simply kind of a communication gap. So I want us to talk through a little bit about how do we ask for help? How do we acknowledge that we're not fine in a way that doesn't make us feel weak. It makes us feel human. And so it is okay to ask for help. It is the biggest act of kindness that you can give yourself. And often I think sometimes people think that, well, if I need help, I have to go to somebody in my life and I have to know exactly what I need. And I have to pinpoint the ask or what I need, or I'm supposed to have it figured out, some solution, no, it doesn't need to be some big fancy ask. It can literally be, I'm really struggling. I need someone to talk to. Hey, are you free? I don't feel like being alone right now. Will you come over? Hey, I'm really struggling. I think I want to talk to a professional. Do you know where I can find one? Have you ever been through something like this before? What helps you in difficult times? Hey, I really just need someone to listen right now. Or can you help me figure out what my options might be? They can be very simple asks. I was doing a keynote presentation at a conference earlier today, and a gentleman in the audience made a really fantastic statement. We were talking about the ways that people listen or don't listen, right? We say, hey, I'm here for support. If you need something, come to me. And then that person comes to you, and sometimes we listen to respond instead of listening to understand. And so he shared that something that he does in his family is when someone's in need of support or help and they have a conversation, he will ask, do you want my advice or do you want my ears? What a beautiful way to put that person as the leader, give them autonomy, treat them as the expert in their life, and as the helper, instead of feeling as though we have to have it all figured out based on what they need. What if we hold space for them to tell us? So same thing goes. If you ask for help, if you need support, be clear. I know that it's not always easy, but ask for help because there's no shame in that. But if you can, think through what would actually be helpful for you. What's really going on? Why is the I'm fine phrase your go-to? Are there feelings you don't want to address? Are there potential repercussions about expressing what you're going through? But what's really going on? And what type of help do you need? What would help you feel more supported? Are there things that you need more of? Are there things you need less of? People genuinely want to help. I absolutely believe that. And the majority of time, they just don't know how. They're afraid of doing the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing. They want to support you, but they also need some guidance in how to do that. And so I have taken on a firm belief in my mental health recovery that if I really want people to show up for me, I've got to give them some grace. And when I'm able to, which I may not always be, okay, if I'm in the dump or I'm in a crisis, I might not be able to advocate for myself. But if I'm able to, I want to tell them what I'm feeling, what I need, and what their role can be. Right? Here's what I'm going through. And you know what would be really useful? And then ask for it. So many times people are willing to help us, we just don't ask. Either because we don't know what we need or we don't think that people want to help. So take a minute and think to yourself, what are you really going through? Not that I'm fine, okay? What that's a lie, usually. And maybe what are the other lies you're telling yourself? What do you actually need? And I want you to think about what would be helpful for somebody else to do. And maybe it's just holding space. It's, hey, will you come over and sit with me even if I don't feel like talking? Think about what they could potentially do that would be useful, and even what you've done in the past that has helped you. You can absolutely ask someone to support you and say, I just want you to listen, or I'm looking to brainstorm a few next steps. You can also set boundaries of what you are and are not able to do. You know, hey, I can't take that on right now because I'm focusing on my mental health. You know, hey, I'd love to talk about this, but I really need space to focus on myself. Yes, I would love to do that, and not right now. Setting up boundaries is a phenomenal way to take care of our mental health. And so when you think about your natural response often to say, I'm fine, and maybe this isn't you personally, but it's somebody in your life, having the confidence to say, this is something I could work on. This is something I know that I do. If you're willing to say, hey, I've got some work to do, that's huge. I am right there with you. I am a work in progress. I don't ever want to be in a place in my life where I don't have more to learn, where I don't have new areas that I can grow in, where I can be a better person. I can be a better friend and a better partner. And so ask for help when you need it, because that's how we build resilience. That's where we boost our confidence, because we can show some vulnerability. We recognize that takes courage. Then we get people to help us work through struggle. And that's where we build resilience. That's our ability to bounce back. That's literally what resilience means. And you know what happens when we take off that mask, you know, the brave face, that suit of armor that I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. When we give ourselves the damn permission to take that off, that models honesty. That models emotional vulnerability to other people, and it gives them permission. It gives them permission to not only speak their truth, but to be real with us. You know, and it can feel awkward. It can feel awkward the first time that you strip off that mask and you choose to let someone in. But I promise you, there is so much benefit in taking that step. And if you feel like there isn't somebody in your life that you can go to, build your support system. You know, there are therapists, there are peer support groups, there are faith leaders and counselors and psychiatrists and mentors and coaches, and there's help available out there that if in your natural support, you're like, I don't have anybody that I would tell this to. Reach out. Okay? Easiest place you can call, and you don't even have to be in a crisis. But if you don't have someone that you can strip off that face and say, hey, I'm not fine, or maybe you feel like there's consequences if you do that, great resource. Call 988. It's the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. And you can call for any reason. If you are under any kind of emotional distress, it's 24/7, free, confidential, and you get connected directly to a trained crisis counselor. If you're looking for help because you want to build up your support system, if you don't have it within your family, your coworkers, your friend group, whatever, you can call the number 211 and they can connect you to resources and referrals all throughout the country. So if you call and say, you know what, I really am looking for sober housing. I'm looking for Narcotics Anonymous support groups. I'm looking for an outpatient treatment program. I'm looking for depression and anxiety therapy groups. They can access a national database to help you hone in on what's available to you. Another resource that you should always know about, spread the word, they provide great support, is NAMI. And that stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. They're a national organization and they have chapters in almost every single state. And they provide support groups for individuals who are struggling with their mental health or substance use that could use support. And they have classes. So that somebody who's struggling, they can take a class to learn additional skills for managing their mental health condition. And they have support groups and classes for family members. Years ago, my parents went through the family to family class at NAMI, and it was life-changing for them. Because my mental illness didn't just affect me, it affected my whole family. And my parents wanted to show up and provide support and love and encouragement. And in the moments when I was difficult and maybe a little more challenging to love, or was in the midst of a crisis, or, I mean, they're floundering. You know, they were for many years going, oh my gosh, what do we do? NAMI was an incredible tool and asset for them. And so reach out to organizations like that. Because if you need help, there is no reason to keep that to yourself and continuously tell others that you are fine when you are not. Okay? Teach others how to treat you based on how you treat yourself. And the last thing I'll say that I think has been a really helpful, I don't know, kind of nugget of knowledge that I've come to in the last many years is that you don't have to prove how bad it is to deserve support. Okay? You don't have to wait until you're in crisis or the wheels have fallen off the wagon or you've lost your job or housing or your relationships are falling apart. You don't have to prove your brokenness to deserve help. And for a long time, I felt that way. You know, I would struggle with things and I would say, well, I'm fine, you know, because it could be worse. Well, that's true. And I'm just as deserving of support and empathy and compassion, whether or not I'm in crisis or I'm facing an everyday challenge. Okay, we don't have to prove how bad things are to know that we're deserving of support. And so I ask that you find the courage to ask for what you need. That's how we heal. That's how we connect with others. And that's how we reduce mental health stigma. So that we can show up, we can be vulnerable, and we can be authentic, and we can proudly say, I'm not fine, and I'm going to ask for your help. So thanks for joining today. I will see you next week for Real Talk Wednesday.